All right, next I'll talk about basic usage of OpenDRT in Nuke, which is a node-based compositing software developed by the Foundry and is used in high-end feature film visual effects for compositing, and is also a great tool for doing color look development. I do all of my dev work and prototyping in Nuke and then port it to DCTL shader language after, because it's very good at being able to kind of lay things out visually and to be able to see individual nodes that describe different states and toggle between them and kind of get a sense for what is happening under the hood, which is really useful for prototyping. Anyway, I've got a little scene here with a few images, the same ones that we looked at earlier on, and also a few test charts and some plots and various picture formation transforms that we can take a look at. So yeah, let's import OpenDRT, the Nuke node. So I'll just switch over to the file that I downloaded, and I'm just going to drag and drop it into the node graph, which loads the node as a group node. So inside of here, this basically, and you don't need to know Nuke's UI that much or anything. I'm just going to kind of explain things as I go, and hopefully it'll make sense. I will say that this is the node graph, so it's kind of a layout of the individual operators, and the connections basically describe how data flows in the graph. So this is kind of a reader image reader, which loads image data, and there's various nodes and things that connect, and this is the OpenDRT node that connects to the image, and then this is the viewer, which is showing us a picture in the viewer over here, and this looks really washed out by default. So in Nuke, there's different types of color management. If you press S over the node graph and go to color, this is the project settings for Nuke, and I just have color management set to Nuke, not OCIO. So basically there's no color management really that's happening. In the viewer dropdown, there's one thing that's happening, which is that I have the setting here set to Rec 1886, which is applying a 2.4 gamma, or 1 divided by 2.4 power function in the viewer. And I usually like to work this way because I like to see the display linear output from the node so that I can plot without the display encoding applied. So I'm just going to change the OpenDRT node in the EOTF. I'm going to set this to linear, and I'll just uncheck clamp. And now we see the default preset of OpenDRT in Nuke. And so, okay, so first things first, I'll just go over the Nuke node UI layout. So it's a bit more complex than the DCTL, and it has all parameters exposed, kind of like the stick shift version of the DCTL. And there's some functionality in here for switching presets and also creating presets. That's actually how I made the presets in the DCTL, is I created them in the Nuke node first, and then there's some Python scripts in here to make it a bit easier to copy and paste the code into the DCTL to avoid errors. So the Nuke node is laid out in different tabs. So we have quite a few different knobs, as these things are called, these parameters. So we have a tone scale tab, a purity tab, a brilliance tab, and a hue shift tab. And all the parameters are kind of laid out in these different sections. And if we want to change the presets, that's pretty easy. We can just go to the presets drop down here, look presets, and there's the same presets that we saw in the DCTL. So the default is already set, so I'll try setting it to colorful. And we can see that actually the parameter values are changing as we change this. And yeah, this is basically a knob that changes the values of the various parameters, so you can actually see how they're changing. So if we change this, we can see it has different settings and the different modules are changing. We can also change the tone scale preset independently, and it has the same options as in the DCTL. So we can choose ACES 1.x or ACES 2 and so forth. And then, yeah, if you want, you can go in and start changing stuff. So if we say we want to make the default preset but with a D55 white point, and we want to make the highlights pop a bit more, highlights in scare quotes, and say we want to expose down overall a little bit. Say we want to store this as a new preset, we could just say add preset and call it my cool look. And now we have that as a preset in here, and we can kind of store it and go back to default or go to the my cool look preset, and it kind of stores it there. So it's a cool way to like play around and store your ideas and to save your work and toggle back and forth, because it's a lot of parameters to change and can be kind of overwhelming to deal with everything, or to even store states and revert back to them. Cool, so I'll leave it there. We'll go over the individual parameters and what they do in our deep dive, which I'll talk about a bit later. And yeah, so that's the Nuke node of OpenDRT, and we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening.